Alright, let's learn how to do some fake bruises with stage makeup. The first thing we're going to do is get some of the makeup out of the bruise wheel. We're making sure to be sanitary here, so we're using a spatula onto a makeup palette and not double dipping into the colors so we don't muddy them up. I've got a baby wipe, a makeup wipe there that I'm wiping off in between each color and just putting down them on my palette. I like to separate them into reds in one section, blue and purples in another, and yellow and green. And then I also have some of the other bed and eye makeup there. So now what I'm doing is setting down a base of a red color there to do general skin irritation. And then I go in with a second tone of red to give it a little more depth and dimension. You can be really messy about this, just using nice patting motions on a makeup sponge. We're going for blotchy here, which makes this a super easy technique to do. It's just going up and down, blotchiness. Now I'm going in with some different purples and the blue there in the center to be where the main irritation is at, giving a focal point of the bruise. And you can see there's lots of patting going on. I jump back and forth between the purple, blue tones and the reds to make sure I get the color that I like. This is all organic, so have some fun with it. There is not really a wrong way to do this, but you mainly concentrate the darker colors in the center to look like the initial hit, and then it spreads out. And there I'm fading the red a little bit further out so it's not so much of a stark difference. I like to use this one sponge and then I kind of fold it different ways to use the different colors so I can focus on each area in the sponge how I like. And it's still lots of patting up and down. Then we're going to make some burst capillaries, so we're going to take this more decorative open sponge here, dip it in sort of the reds and a little bit of the darker colors, and then lightly patting around. And again, this just breaks it up, adds some texture, some more depth and dimension there. And that was our fresh bruise. So now, in order to make it look like these injuries happened at different times, we're going to go with a slightly more healed bruise. So start by putting a base of yellow down there. Again, can be splotchy with some heavier areas and lighter, fading out into the skin. I like to use a clean sponge for this, so I have my yellow and green sponge and my sort of red, blue, purple sponge. Then going in with some green and you're blending that into the yellow. Again, it's a little heavier in one spot, sort of where that initial injury would have happened, but we do want to have the green being sort of muddy throughout with the yellow. And you can see me blending the yellow out a little more again. This technique is super forgiving. You can always go back and fix it if you think it needs to be a little lighter on the edges. Then again, going back in with my red and purples in the center there to make the initial injury spot. And you can see me there folding the sponge just so I can get that more purple color. And for this look, I only need to use 2. And then again with the burst capillaries, just to add more of that texture and definition. Breaks it up a little bit and makes your bruises look a little more realistic. Alright, so now we're going to look at doing some simple cuts here. So I start by putting a nice foundation of a light red. You can go with a pink from your lip bed and eye palette if you have, otherwise using the same simple red, just going a little bit lighter on your hand. And this I do a bit more of a smudging motion as opposed to in pats, and then I'll go back in and pat in a second color. Then I'll go in with a detail brush. I like using a flat or an angled, and with my brighter red there. This one is from the Ben Nye wheel, but you can also use the red that came in the Bruise palette. And then I just go in and do some quick strokes of varying sizes and pressures. And that just makes a really simple scratch look there. Just quickly dragging my brush, and you kind of want to deposit some color heavier in spots and lighter in others, because that's where it looks like the initial sort of puncture, and then drag. Then again, adding the capillaries in there. All right, since this is cream, we need to set it. So this is the transparent fair powder from Ben Nye. And then what I do is rub it into my sponge there, snap it a little bit until it's coming out nicely, and then go ahead and roll it on. This will set the cream and help stop it from transferring onto everything. And to go back and do that on the bruises as well. So anywhere you use cream makeup, you're going to want to set. And there we have the finished look of some of the bruises. All right, another technique that we can use to do a bit more of a subtle bruise is actually going to be using eyeshadow. So to start, I'm laying down a base of yellow. This is, again, being a little bit older of a bruise. The eyeshadow is going to be more subtle than the cream, so it can also be fun to sort of mix the two. I like using a big fluffy brush to blend it out, and then a smaller fluffy brush to deposit the color more intensely. And again, it gets that sort of blotchy look there. Going in with my yellows and greens, if you want to clean your brush in between colors so you don't the messy on your eyeshadow palette, you can just rub it onto either the side of your hand or onto a paper towel. That helps get the powder off of the brush so that it's not put into the color. Especially good if you're going back and forth between a darker tone and a lighter one. And even with the eyeshadow, I still like to go in with my sponge and do the capillary look, but then you will want to set this with powder. And there it is. It's way more subtle, but I think on a smaller stage it'll look good. So now that we're done with the makeup, it's important to keep everything sanitary. So I'm spraying my palettes there with some rubbing alcohol. I'll leave those to dry. Then I'll go ahead and wipe down my spatula with my baby wipe or makeup wipe. Either one works. And then that'll get sprayed with some of the rubbing alcohol as well. If we do all this because it helps our cream makeup last longer. As long as you keep it clean, it'll last for years. Otherwise, you'd have to change it more. And these are used multiple people over years, so we just want to keep everything nice and sanitary. So wiping down my palette and again, spraying it with my rubbing alcohol and leaving it out to dry. Then I also like to clean my brushes. So just taking some dish soap there and rubbing it in my hands. At the end, I'll go through with after a production, I'll go through and thoroughly clean all of the brushes with a brush cleaner. But I like to do a quick clean. And then again, spraying it with our rubbing alcohol. And there's my other fluffy brush I use. You can see how dirty it gets off with just one application. And the sponge works the same way. These are much harder to clean and take a while. So this is something I'll typically do at the end of the run. And that's it.